When I have Super 8 film that I want to transfer myself without sending it to a lab, I use this setup. It's a modified Bauer Super 8 projector from the German company Film Digital. It allows me to connect a camera to the front of the projector and record the playback of the film. I covered this in a video last year, and while it does involve a certain amount of post-processing work, I can achieve some great looking Super 8 transfers myself. Over the summer, Film Digital supplied me with their 16mm setup, which works in the same way, but instead uses a modified 16mm projector so that you can capture 16mm film. In place of a normal projector bulb, there's now an LED light source that is powered and controlled with an external unit. This control box connects via a 3-pin cable at the back of the projector, and the intensity and white balance of the light can then be adjusted. The projector also has a speed control modification. Normally, the Bauer can simply switch between 18 or 24 frames per second, but Film Digital have added a dial here that can further speed up or slow down the projector's speed. And at the front, in place of a projector lens, a macro lens assembly has been added, which allows you to attach a digital camera onto the projector to record the playback of the film. The macro lens is a C-mount lens, and I have an adapter on it for use with a micro 4/3 camera. As with the modified Super 8 projector that Film Digital also does, it's essentially a beefed up telecine unit. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just not slow enough that I can capture frames individually, so it's not like a frame-by-frame scanner. I'm recording the film as it's moving. Transfers like this range from recording a projection on the wall or off of a screen to projecting onto a mirror that reflects the image into a camera lens. My experience with the Super 8 projector setup was great, although it did take some experimenting to find the best camera settings combined with some post-processing work on the video files to remove some mild flickering of the projection and a special script that Film Digital offers for removing duplicate and blended frames in the video. But after working with it for a while, I was able to get transfers of Super 8 done myself that look really good, even in comparison against like a basic lab scan. The 16 projector setup I found a bit harder initially to work with, and in no way replaces having like a proper scan done of the 16mm film, but I find it's still able to do very good transfers. I use a Lumix GH5 camera with the projector, and because of the size of the camera, I have to mount it upside down, just like on the Super 8 projector as well, so that it will fit. Mounting a sizable camera to the front of the unit isn't a problem, but I do wish there was maybe like a platform or kind of some sort of further support added to help keep things just a bit more steady. I do have steady enough results when I'm using image stabilization on this Lumix GH5 for recording, but the positioning and framing can take a bit to adjust, and I find it moves around a little too freely. The lens has some small screws that can be loosened to allow for more movement to help with framing. It's all about kind of moving things in and out just a little bit until you find your proper framing, just like when I was working with the Super 8 projector as well. The macro lens piece has an actual focus ring on it, so I can adjust that and get nice sharp focus on the frame of the film. The Bauer is an auto load projector, and the film should feed easily through it by simply pressing down this green button at the top. Once it comes out at the bottom, it threads around these rollers, and the tension would disengage the loading guides inside of the projector. I played around with a variety of settings for transferring the film, trying different shutter speeds and frame rates on the camera, along with adjusting the speed of the projector. The biggest drawback I encountered initially to capturing the film this way is motion blur that I get when recording. This projector has a 2-blade shutter, and along with the modified speed control, I can sync up the shutter between my camera and the projector to eliminate flicker. So I'm able to run both the film and the camera at 24 frames per second. And this Lumix allows me to record in smaller shutter speed increments for video, so using 1/48 of a second for the shutter speed eliminates flicker. But I do have motion blur that's unavoidable. It's not always super noticeable, but it is a result of transferring with a system like this. I believe this could be improved by using a different kind of camera, one that has a global shutter instead of a rolling shutter to avoid as much motion blur. But cameras with global shutters are far less common and usually a little more specialized than your standard camera that just has a rolling shutter. At the moment, I've been experimenting with setting the projector to its slowest speed and capturing it at 60 frames per second in the camera. From there, I use a special script that Film Digital offers for the program Virtual Dub, which does a good job of removing duplicate frames in the video. This isn't perfect and also involves tweaking the speed a bit, but I've gotten some transfers that look good. Working with film transfers like these do involve a variety of post-processing work most of the time. First of all, I like to crop things cleanly and then put a mask over the edges so that I get the proper aspect ratio of the frame. Inverting color negative film is the thing that takes the most amount of work. There's a plugin for DaVinci Resolve called ColorNegInvert, which I recommend trying out for working with transfers and scans that need to be inverted. Sometimes I find it works really well, and other times I find it just needs a lot of work. And of course, color grading is a lot of personal preference as well. So working with color negative scans just means that there is going to be a decent amount of editing. Working with black and white negative film is easier because simply inverting the film gets you pretty close to a good result right away. The gate of the 16mm projector does also mean you don't get as much of the film frame as you do from a proper lab scan. This isn't entirely necessary for everything, but it's worth noting. I mean, you're not going to get like the overscan with the sprockets. Not that most people need that. Potentially the gate can be enlarged, although that is a delicate process that I've not felt like tackling. I do see some movement on the transfers that are a result of the film being moved through a projector. It isn't terrible, and you can run it through a stabilization such as the one in DaVinci Resolve, but again, something to consider when transferring film through any sort of modified projector or telecine setup like this. The Bauer is a sound projector and has a built-in speaker, but the outputs on this projector use a special cable. Potentially with the right cable, I should be able to plug the sound output into the camera, and then I can capture that sound from projection during recording as well. I just don't have that cable. And I don't have much sound 16mm film anyways to transfer at the moment.
These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations.
I like having this system, especially as I'm trying more and more to experiment with home developing 16mm film. I want to be able to do decent enough transfers of what I'm working on and not have to have like everything I developed scanned by a lab just so I can take a closer look at it or incorporate it into the videos. I do think maybe like some sort of anti-static brush would maybe be like a good addition to this projector, just like something that can kind of like clip on somewhere before you feed it through the projection area. I happen to have one because I have this scanning unit from Veloy. You can get a little brush accessory for that. So I've just been like threading the 16mm film through that and then just having it run through that brush before it goes into the projector. And I mean, it is a projector, so you want to make sure that you're cleaning it as you would clean any projector as you're running film through it, making sure that the rollers are moving properly, everything's threading okay, and just like maintain it. So that is just like part of it being a projector. For absolute transparency here, Film Digital supplied like projector and the lens themselves, and I personally covered the shipping cost of getting it to me here in Canada. This unit plus shipping would cost about $2,200 American, and you need to have your own camera to use with it, of course, as well. In the field of 16mm scanning options, there is no like low-end consumer product that's available for this format. For Super 8 film, you can get the scanners like the Wolverine unit, all the ones that there's other versions of that, but they're all basically the same. They're plastic, it's made pretty cheaply. The video quality really isn't that good, but it is fine for a lot of people. These can be bought for under $500. There's nothing like that out there for 16mm film. In fact, the cheapest option for transferring 16mm besides a projector telecine setup like this is probably the RetroScan 816, I think. And that runs about $7,000 American, but can do both 8mm and 16mm. And after that, it's getting into like higher end lab scanners like Film Fabrique scanners. There are, of course, DIY options out there for making frame-by-frame scanners, usually involving modified projectors and microcomputers like Raspberry Pis and sometimes specialty cameras, but that's really kind of reliant on you having the skills to make it. So if I look at what is possible with this and the price range that it's in, I think it's okay. I'm more impressed with the quality I can get from the Super 8 unit. It's smaller. I think the 3-blade shutter in the Super 8 projector allows for cleaner captures, but I'm still definitely going to make use of this for very basic transfers of 16mm film. I think it's also that when you're working at the level of 16mm film and the quality that you can get out of this format from like a really good transfer, I usually just want to spend the money and have a lab handle it. The possibility of camera negatives getting scratched or dirty as the result of running them through a projector is always a concern when using this setup. And even the Super 8 setup, so a lab is going to be much more capable of handling that. I can definitely justify owning a unit like this. It makes some more basic like 16mm videos possible, but it's not necessarily for the casual hobbyist, of course. I think the appeal of this is maybe in someone looking to start like a little business of transferring people's old home movies and prints and, you know, like Kodachrome and stuff like that, that was always kind of meant to go through projectors and is like a little more resilient to that than running like negatives through the projector. And that stuff also doesn't need to be like inverted and necessarily heavily edited when it's being digitized either. So with all of that said, I am really happy overall with being able to use this, and especially because I can go back through some 16mm film I shot years ago that I lost scans of when I had a hard drive crash. Thank you so much for checking this out. You can find information in the description down below for the film digital stuff. They are located in Germany. You can also find information down below for ways to support the channel. Shout out to Downtown Camera here in Toronto. They gave me this shirt, this wonderfully dorky shirt here. You can find that at Downtown Camera, along with a bunch of other stuff. You can also find affiliate links that I have down in the description as well. Recently, I've started to do a little bit of work upcoming with freestyle photo out in California in the States. So there's affiliate links. If you buy stuff through that, you get a little bit of kickback from that to me, to your old analog Resurgence, a couple bucks here and there for Polaroid, for Pro 8, and for freestyle photo as well. So check all that stuff out. There's also a Patreon, a little bit of my own merch, which probably needs updating, but just a lot of work. Thank you so much for all of you who are watching as we near the end of the year. A couple weeks back, I haven't put up a video since then, but a couple weeks back, I hit 5 years of doing this since the end of 2018 is when I started this. October 2018, and now October 2023. So yeah, cool. 5 years. 2019, 2020. 5 years. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.